Let's move from sad news to sad news. The Tennessee Volunteers played their football game this past weekend against the University of Massachusetts Minutemen, and it did not go as many people thought it would.
No, it did not. Many people thought this game would be much of a rout, as you see Brandon Johnson right there with a 10-yard catch. Many thought this would be a rout that Tennessee should win because they were favored by 28 points, and we were definitely not. We were led astray, definitely.
This game was much closer than many anticipated. Right here I have a thing for you. Coastal Carolina and Old Dominion both beat UMass by 10. Tennessee could only manage a 4-point win, as we see Kyle Phillips right there with the tackle for loss.
There's so much I can say about this game. One thing, you got Quentin Dormady going 17 of 27 for 187 yards and a touchdown, including a fumble. And then you have some Jarrett Garantano minutes thrown in where he went 2 of 5 for -3 yards passing and an additional fumble. Jacob, what do you think about the game? What was your overall thoughts?
I mean, it's nice to see that man run right there, John Kelly. He's proving that he is the most important skill player on this team. He's easily the most important offensive weapon, other than, you could argue, the line. You could argue the quarterback has a bigger impact on the game. But no player has done what John Kelly's done this season for the Vols.
No, and he's their only consistent offensive threat as of right now, because as we've seen, the quarterback play has been very inconsistent. You don't have a reliable receiver at this moment with Jawan Jennings down with an injury, so the Vols have had to find someone else, and they found their running man in John Kelly.
I think it's important to note this game, the defensive line, the front seven, had a great game against a UMass front. It's not a great UMass offensive line.
No, it is not. And like I said, they gave up 7 total sacks. That is unheard of in a football game. And yeah, you're right. UMass's offensive line definitely has some work to do.
Right. Tennessee, as you said, 7 sacks. It's the most by a Tennessee team since 2008. I mean, that looks great on the stat sheet. However, UMass's offensive line is pretty bad. They're averaging 6 sacks allowed per game, 30 sacks conceded in 5 games for the Minutemen. That is worst in all of FBS. So Tennessee's 7 sacks, it's something to be proud of, but it's not something you can hang your hat on and say, wow, what a great performance by this defensive line. They're going to be able to do this every single week.
No, definitely not. And like you said, they've only had 10 total sacks on the year, and 7 of them came in 1 game. So you definitely have areas to improve if you're a Tennessee defense and Butch Jones. You
mentioned Tennessee's receivers. The receiver who looked really good in this game was Brandon Johnson.
Very good. You have 7 receptions for 123 yards. He pretty much was the Marquez Callaway of this game. He came out. Nobody had really heard of him much before, and he made a statement. He made a name for himself.
And he did a great job. He kept getting open over the middle, and that's something so valuable for young quarterbacks, to see a reliable receiver continuously get himself open, especially somewhere across the middle of the field. You can make an easier throw and try to get huge gains like we saw with that one from Johnson. So let's go ahead and look ahead to next week's game for the Vols, where they will go play Georgia. Georgia looks pretty good right now.
Yes, they do. They're coming off a 31-3 destruction of Mississippi State, as we see quarterback Jake Fromm with a nice flea flicker here to Terry Godwin, one of the fastest receivers in the entire NCAA. Mississippi State looked great against LSU. Not so much of the same story on this Saturday. What do you think about this game?
I think it means Georgia's really good, because I am not convinced that LSU is a bad team. I think that's still a great win for Mississippi State. Still something to be proud of. Georgia's rushing attack is something else, man. And with Jake Fromm, the freshman, looking good in place of the starter, Jacob Eason, that is bad news for Tennessee fans this weekend. But just so much can be said about this rush game. Nick Chubb, of course, is Nick Chubb, but Sonny Michel is an excellent starter.
Definitely, as we see Jake Fromm with another 41-yard touchdown pass to Isaac Nuata. Georgia, are they the best non-Alabama team in the SEC?
Man, I think they have to be. A lot of people before the season would have picked this to be Auburn or maybe Florida. But those teams really haven't shown as much as Georgia has. Florida keeps finding new ways to win, but their offense really hasn't looked very good this year. And Auburn just hasn't been as good as people anticipated they would be with Jared Stidham working on that new offense in Alabama. Alabama has looked like Alabama has so far, as they typically do, but Georgia has been a surprise to many, including myself. I didn't think Georgia was this good. Georgia has been incredible. I think they're very much the second-best team in the SEC right now.
Oh, I completely agree. The Bulldogs, they average 31 points per game, and their average margin of victory is 19.5. You're looking at a team that averages 223 rushing yards on offense, but only gives up 97.5 on defense. So Georgia right now is hot. They've been on fire. It's going to take a lot for Tennessee to stop them this Saturday.
I mean, this is a game Tennessee really needs to win if they want to win the SEC East, which is something people keep criticizing Butch Jones. He hasn't won the East yet. Doesn't look like they're going to win the East this year right now, especially with this Georgia team in there. if Tennessee can't win this game, can they win the East? Is this a must-win game?
This is a must-win game. If they lose this game, they have no chance at winning the East whatsoever. And we've said this for weeks, going on weeks now. If they had won the Florida game, we would be in a different scenario right now. But they put themselves in this position, and it doesn't look like they're going to be able to climb out of this hole.
I agree. I think Tennessee is going to need something like we saw this many years ago in the Big 12 with a three-way tie at the top of the division between Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and Texas Tech, where all three of those teams against the other two won one game and lost another. So they all went 1-1 against each other. And then that created a really tough tiebreaker. How do you gauge which team is better? I think Tennessee is going to need a similar situation to happen if they want a chance at winning the East. That means they're going to have to beat Georgia. Georgia's going to have to beat Florida. That is a tough ask, and you need help from outside.
Definitely. That is a very tall task, and we will see over the next few weeks how they respond.
So that's all the time we got for this segment. We'll be back in a little bit to talk about what happened this summer. NBA, a little bit of soccer, a little bit of track and field. Don't want to miss that. Stay tuned.